Aimsy here of Aimsy's Antics. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're well today because I have a sewing project to share with you, and I know I've been a little bit lax on the content front in the last few months, but life just comes at you fast sometimes. I've been quite busy and, to be honest, lost a little bit of my creative oomph, but I am back this week with a sewing project. So I'm going to show you how to make a Co-Ord set using the Friday Pattern Company pattern Saguaro pattern, and this is basically a great lounge set, really comfortable pants with elasticated waist and a crop top with an elasticated waist as well. Now this is perfect for lounging about, and as I said, depending on your material, you can make it for beachwear as well, which is what I did with this linen material here. And what another good thing with this is the top can be worn front ways and back ways, and you still have a great effect. So if you would like to see how to make a Co-Ord set using the Saguaro pattern, then let's get crafting. So here is the pattern from Friday Pattern Company and my chosen fabric, which is a viscose linen, I believe, that I purchased from Pound Fabrics, and if it is still available I will link it down below. But it has this lovely nautical type stripe that is perfect for summer, even though we are now into autumn, I guess. Before starting the project, I have washed and dried the fabric as well as assembled the PDF pattern pieces together. Now this pattern does come with quite a few different pieces, and some are for the top and some are for the bottom, obviously. So what I'm doing here is just pinning all the relevant pattern pieces onto the fabric, making sure that I am following the same grain as indicated on the pattern, as well as attempting to pattern match as best as I can with the fabric pieces, and I think I do a pretty good job. It's not always easy, but you've just got to make sure you line up the pieces just right. But we'll see how that turns out later on in the project. And then it's time to cut out the pattern pieces, and I'm just using some nice sharp sewing scissors here, but you can use a rotary cutter. I'm not using mine because I need a new blade and I just haven't got around to replacing it. So yes, cut out whichever method you desire. So after cutting out, you should have 13 pattern pieces ready to be sewn and assembled together, plus a square of stabilising interfacing to go on the waistband of the pants. And then it is time to get on with the project. So we are going to load up the machine and start with the top of the Saguaro pattern set. Now this part of the pattern is optional, but I wanted to include them in this, and it is the front ties to the top, and it just helps secure some of that wrap over part of the front, and it just looks nice. So what you've got to do is create a sort of bias binding. So what I'm doing with the pattern pieces here is folding them in half and then unfolding this and folding the raw edges to meet that halfway mark that has just been pressed on both sides, so you have the two raw edges folded into the middle. Then what you want to do is unfold the end, fold the end bit inwards, and then refold where those two long edges were folded and press, and that should encapsulate all the raw edges on the inside. Then fold that in half so all the raw edges are on the inside, and then press. Then we're going to head to the machine and stitch along all the open raw edge sides to secure it all together, and you should have a really nice tidy piece for the front tie pieces. Always remembering to backstitch the start and the end of the seam just to give it that added bit of strength. And then it is time to attach these ties to the front of the top. So we are pinning them in place here on the front pieces of the top, but on the wrong side. And then what we're going to do is baste stitch them in place just to keep them in place whilst we do the other parts of the top. Now the base stitch is basically the largest stitch possible on the machine, and it just temporarily holds it in place until you can encapsulate it into the seam or whatever you are doing. Just hold it in place, and you don't need to use pins, which is great. Once the ties are attached, it's time to create the rest of the top. So we're taking the back piece of the top, right side facing upwards, and then placing the two front parts on top of this, lining up the shoulder seams right sides downwards, so the right sides are touching and the wrong sides are showing on either side. So attaching at the shoulders, and then we're just going to go to the sewing machine and sew a normal seam, not a base stitch, along that shoulder seam edge. I am also finishing the seam edge with a zigzag stitch on overlocking stitch, just to give it a really nice neat finish and stopping any of that material fraying whilst I am wearing it. And next I am assembling the biased binding part, and this is going to go around the front edge of the top and give it a really nice finish. So to do this, I'm taking the two pattern pieces and lining them up raw sides so that they are at a diagonal, and if I have done the pattern matching right, the stripes should continue to follow in the same direction. What you want to do is sew along that diagonal edge, and then similar to what we did before with the front tie straps, I am using the same process by creating lovely creases to create that bias binding. And this is how the bias binding will look before we have attached it to the front of the top. And then what I have done here is placed right sides together of the bias binding, opening one of the raw edges and aligning it with the raw edge of the top, then pinning it in place and sewing it along. And what you should find is the loose end of the bias binding should be on the left side to your sewing needle so that you can open it up. Then once it is sewn the first side, you want to then fold it back over so that it folds in on itself onto the other side. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but then you sew this in place and all the raw edges will be together, sandwiched between the layers of material, as well as those front tie straps should be included in this and have a really nice edge to that neckline. And next it is time to connect the side seams together. So this is basically pinning the front and back of the top together along the underside of the sleeve and down that side of the top, doing a normal seam, back stitching at the start and end, and finishing with a zigzag stitch to give the seam a nice finish. And this is what it should look like, and if you have pattern matched, it should more or less line up. Look at that, only slightly out. Not gonna lie, I am impressed with myself with this one. Before attaching the waistband part to the top, we need to connect the two front pieces in the center, and this is sort of like a mini wrap style. So the pattern piece indicates some notches, so you want to mark this, cross over the fabric and pin in place. And then I believe we're going to head back to the sewing machine, change the stitching to the largest because we are going to baste stitch this into place before attaching that waistband. And this is what it will look like after baste stitching. And you know, the pattern matching is a little bit off on this one, but you win some, you lose some, and you can't really tell, so who cares? Anyway, we're going to move on to the waistband part of the top and connecting the two pattern pieces together on the short edges. So pinning these together and then heading to the sewing machine and sewing a seam, flattening out that seam so that once it is sewn, you press this open, which I think I'm a little bit ahead of here. Yep, here we go. And then once that is pressed open, we're going to then fold the waistband in half, right sides on the outside, and pin it into place along that raw edge of the bottom of the top, leaving a gap so that we can insert the waistband elastic to give the top a nice elasticated waist bit. And remembering to backstitch on either side of that gap just for added stability. And then this is what it should look like once it is attached. And again, I've only just noticed, but the pattern matching is just slightly off, which is a little bit annoying right now, but you know what, again, who cares? Now I have measured the waistband elastic to fit around my waist so that the top isn't too tight but also not too loose, which so it looks silly. Then we're going to take the safety pin and start threading it through that gap left in the waistband all around till it comes out the other side, then connecting the two ends of the elastic together with a few zigzag stitches to give it that extra stability. Then the elastic can be placed inside the waistband and we're going to close it up, and to close it up we're going to do a simple top stitch along the top and bottom edges of that waistband piece, stretching out the elastic and fabric as we go, and it'll give this lovely sort of ruffly look, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going with it, the ruffly look. And then to finish off the top, we're just going to hem around those open sleeves. So this is like a rolled hem. I believe it's either 1/2 centimetre or 1 centimetre, either way rolled, and then just sewn along that raw edge. And this is what the sleeves will look like. And the saguaro top is complete, and we're going to move on to making the trousers. Before sewing the pants, we need to make sure that the markings for the waistband are placed on. So to do this, the pattern piece indicates that you fold it a certain way so that you can mark where the openings need to be for the front ties of that waistband. So what I'm doing here is just using a water erasable pen and marking in where the buttonhole is going to go for the front ties, as well as adding on that bit of stabilizer to the back for when we get to sewing them. Place this aside and we're going to add the pockets to the trouser legs. The first thing to do is place the pocket facing right side together with the front trouser leg, pin it into place and then sewing it on the sewing machine. Then you fold it out and top stitch it to keep it in place so that it's folding outwards. Then we're going to add the pocket bag or the pocket lining and line up all those edges with the pocket facing outwards and pin it along that edge, making sure to sew all around the edge but not into the trouser part. And I've just finished this with a zigzag stitch to give it a nice little finish. Then I'm going to fold the pocket inwards so that it is behind the trouser leg, so it's on the wrong side now, and making sure the edges line up like so, and this is what it will start to look like. Then just pin it in place on the two edges, so the top and the side, before base stitching these into place, and these base stitches will then be incorporated into the relevant seams where that is, and you should have a working pocket like so. How cool! Then place the two front leg pieces right sides together so the edges line up, and then pin along that front curved edge. So the front crotch seam is what we are going to create now. Head to the sewing machine and sew it together after pinning. And this is what it should look like once it is sewn together. Now I haven't finished the edge of this yet, I don't believe. I think I do that later. And repeating the same process for the back leg pieces, so pinning along that back crotch area and sewing together like so. Then it's time to add the two together, so we're going to combine the front and back pieces to create the trouser legs. So here I am just pinning along the outer side seam with the front and back leg pieces, then heading to the sewing machine and stitching them together. After the outer side seams are sewn together, it is time to do the inner leg side seams. So pinning these at the crotch and working the way down to the bottom of the trouser leg, and then sewing along. Now you've got to be careful you don't sew the crotch shut here, so make sure you do it carefully, but that is what it should look like. Remember the waistband piece we set aside? Well, now it's time to create those buttonholes, and I think I'm doing the buttonholes correctly here, but I am not too sure. The buttonhole attachment on my machine, it does confuse me a little bit, but the openings do look quite neat. Then fold that waistband over in half, wrong sides together, so the right sides are on the outside, pinning this along the upper raw edge of the trousers, folding the waistband down, right sides touching, and leaving a gap at the back so that we can thread that elastic through to create the waistband. And also remembering to make sure the placement of those front tie holes are in the middle of the waistband and pants. You don't want a wonky waistband tie bit. So I have repeated the process of adding in the waistband as before, like the top, and then it's time to again repeat what we did with the top and secure the elastic in place and shut up that gap, or close up the gap. That sounded really rude, didn't it? Stretching that elastic so that it has that nice ruffle effect again. Then it's time to move on to the front ties. The trouser ties are created in entirely the same way as the front ties of the top, except it is much longer because it goes all the way around rather than just sewn in on the edges. And this is what it will look like. We're going to use the same method that we use for the elastic to thread this through one of those buttonholes with a safety pin, threading all the way around till we reach the other side. And the front ties should then be in place. Just make sure that they are equal and that you can tie them. Now what I have done later on is actually place some knots in the end to stop them falling through those buttonhole gaps. So top tip, knot the ends as well. The final thing to do is then hem the bottom of the pants, and that is how to make a Co-Ord set, which is now ready to wear.
Have this feeling, haven't felt for so long. Took a hold of me and won't let go. I've been sleeping, caught me off my guard. Cause you're in my space and now I'm so. Hold me towards you and I cannot fight it. My head's underwater, I try to.
There you have how to make a Co-Ord set using the Friday Pattern Company pattern Saguaro or Saguaro. I'm not quite sure how I don't know why I say it like that. Don't quite know how to pronounce it, but it is a fabulous sewing project. And like I said, you can make this in so many different fabrics that are non-stretch. So you could do cotton, gauze, viscose. I think this is a viscose linen, I can't quite remember, but it is from Pound Fabrics. So if I can find it, I will link it down below or try and link something similar. But I wanted mine for the beach and I thought this was a perfect project for that really. And I do have plans to use this project or pattern again. I want to make a skirt version to go with the top, and I am undecided whether I want to combine the skirt and top to make a dress or whether I want to keep it as a skirt and top Co-Ord set. So let me know what you would like to see in the comments below, as well as what you think of this project, and if you're going to be having a go at making your own Saguaro set, please do let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, then please do give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up with all my creative and crafty antics coming up onto the channel. And whilst you're there, hit that notification bell so you do not miss the next project coming up. And like I said at the start, I haven't been as consistent as I want to be with the channel, but you know, life just gets very, very busy and creativity can wane, and just having the energy to create something and then edit it, write a post and do a video, it can take a little bit out of me. I do work full time, so I'm just trying to find the balance. Now that we've come out of the pandemic, we're able to do a lot more things socially than we were before. I'm just trying to find the right balance, so please do bear with me and stick around, because I do have lots of other projects. I just might not be able to put them all up weekly, although that is the aim. It might not always happen, but yes, please do stick with it. And like I said, if you want to see more information on this pattern and the project, I do have a blog as well, Aimsy's Antics, which is linked down below and up above for you to check out. Sometimes just a bit more information over on there than gets in the videos. And with that said, I will see you in the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week and are able to do something creative and crafty to pass your time, like maybe make your own Co-Ord set using the Saguaro pattern from Friday Pattern Company. And until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.